On a cold, autumn evening, Lily found herself standing at the edge of town, staring at the crumbling silhouette of an old warehouse she had impulsively purchased earlier that day. The sky was heavy with clouds, casting a gray shadow over the rundown building that looked as forgotten as she felt. With her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly, the weight of her pregnancy pressing against her coat, she took a deep breath. This warehouse, this neglected structure, was supposed to be her fresh start. A place where she could escape the memories that haunted her and build something new for the life growing inside her. Lily's mind churned with the echoes of recent heartbreak, the sting of betrayal still raw in her chest. Her family had abandoned her just weeks ago, unwilling or unable to accept the changes looming in her future. Alone and adrift, she had wandered the streets, searching for something solid to hold on to, something that could anchor her when the world felt like it was slipping away. Then, quite unexpectedly, a flyer for the warehouse had caught her eye. A relic sold at a bargain price, far from the bustle of the town center. Without much thought, she had made the call and sealed the deal, desperate to grasp at any hope for a new chapter. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. Now, standing in front of the warehouse's rusted doors, her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She pushed the heavy metal door open, and a groan of protest echoed through the empty space. Dust motes danced in the shafts of fading light filtering through broken windows, and the air smelled of mildew and forgotten years. The vast space stretched out before her, an empty shell waiting to be filled with life once more. But as her eyes adjusted, she noticed something unexpected. Piles of crates stacked haphazardly in one corner, covered with tattered sheets and layers of dust. Old documents peeked out from between the wooden slats, their yellowed edges whispering secrets long left to slumber. A shiver ran down Lily's spine, not from the cold, but from the sense that this warehouse held more than just empty space. There was a story here, a hidden history waiting to be uncovered, and perhaps, in some way, it was connected to her own search for belonging. Despite the weariness that tugged at her limbs, she stepped further inside, feeling the floor creak beneath her boots, the silence wrapping around her like a cloak. She was alone, yet not quite, surrounded by the echoes of lives once lived within these walls. Her fingers brushed over the rough wood of a crate, tracing the faded initials carved into its side. Questions stirred in her mind. Who had owned this place before her? What had been stored here, and why had it been left to decay? The weight of her unborn child pressed against her, reminding her that she was not just searching for answers for herself, but for the future she was about to bring into the world. The warehouse, with all its mystery and neglect, symbolized a blank slate, a place where she might finally carve out a space of safety and hope. Lily paused near a cracked window, the weak light illuminating her reflection alongside the shards of glass. She studied her own face, etched with lines of tiredness and worry, but also determination. The abandonment by her family still stung deeply, but here, within these walls, she was free to rewrite her story. No longer defined by the past, no longer a victim of circumstance. She could be the woman who built something lasting, who created a home for herself and her child, even if it began in the most unlikely of places. The warehouse groaned again, the sound echoing like a sigh, as if the building itself was awakening from a long sleep. Lily's heart quickened with the realization that she was not only stepping into a physical space, but crossing a threshold into a new life. The uncertainty ahead was daunting, but beneath the fear was a spark of hope. a fragile flame she intended to nurture. As she explored deeper, she discovered remnants of a forgotten era: rusted tools, faded photographs, and scraps of fabric that hinted at the people who had once found shelter here. Each item seemed to carry a story, a fragment of a life that had intersected with this place. Lily imagined their struggles and their dreams, their moments of joy and despair trapped within the dust-laden corners. In some unspoken way, their histories intertwined with hers, creating a silent tapestry of resilience and survival. She sank to the floor beside one of the crates, the chills seeping through her coat, and allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability. The warehouse was a mirror to her soul, broken, abandoned, but with the potential to be reborn. Her fingers trembled slightly as she traced the initials once more, a quiet promise forming in her heart. She would uncover the secrets hidden here, piece together the stories left behind, and in doing so, find the strength to face her own future. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the loose boards and carrying with it the scent of rain. Lily stood and moved toward the door, a decision settling within her. She would return with light and tools, with plans to restore this place layer by layer, until it was no longer a forgotten relic, but a sanctuary. Not just for herself, but for the child she was carrying, the symbol of new life and hope amid the ruins. Her breath caught as she stepped back into the fading daylight, the warehouse looming behind her like a guardian of untold stories. Abandoned, yes, but not forsaken. Lily's journey was just beginning, and as the first drops of rain began to fall, she felt a quiet determination settle over her like a shield. This warehouse, this unexpected refuge, would be the foundation of everything she hoped to build. A future forged from the ashes of her past. A home born from abandonment and filled with promise. The next morning, Lily awoke to the soft gray light filtering through her small apartment window. The warehouse lingered in her thoughts, its shadow stretching across every corner of her mind. She sat on the edge of her bed, her hands resting gently on her belly, feeling the subtle movements of the life growing inside her. The weight of her pregnancy was a constant reminder of the future she needed to face, one she hoped to shape on her own terms, despite the loneliness that clung to her like a second skin. Memories of the past weeks flooded back. How her family had turned away when they learned she was expecting. Their silence had been as loud as any argument. A cold rejection that left her feeling severed from the people who were supposed to stand beside her. The betrayal was not just in their words, but in the absence of support, the unwillingness to embrace the change that her pregnancy demanded. Alone and uncertain, she had wrestled with despair, her heart heavy with questions about what lay ahead. The warehouse, with its cracked windows and forgotten crates, had become a symbol of that uncertainty. But it was also a beacon, a place where she could begin again, far from the pain and judgment that had defined her recent days. She remembered the way the dust had settled on old documents and crates, how the air had smelled of mildew and time itself. The building was more than a structure. It was a repository of stories, some lost and others waiting to be found. Driven by a restless curiosity, Lily dressed quickly and made her way back to the warehouse, the chill of the morning biting through her coat. The town was just waking up, its streets quiet save for the soft footsteps of early risers. When she arrived, the warehouse seemed even more imposing in the daylight, its rusted metal doors standing like silent sentinels guarding secrets she was determined to uncover. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of old paper. Lily pulled on a pair of gloves and knelt beside one of the crates, brushing away layers of dust to reveal faded lettering. She carefully opened the lid, revealing stacks of aged documents, leather-bound journals, and bundles of letters tied with brittle ribbons. Her breath caught as she lifted one fragile envelope, the handwriting delicate and faded, but still legible. As she began to read, a story emerged. Fragments of lives from decades past, people who had once inhabited or worked in this forgotten place. The letters spoke of hardship and hope, of friendships forged in adversity, and dreams deferred but not forgotten. Each word seemed to echo in the vast emptiness around her, filling the warehouse with voices long silent. Lily's fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded a yellowed page, the ink smudged but still revealing heartfelt confessions and quiet acts of courage. These were not just relics. They were pieces of a community that had once thrived here, hidden beneath layers of dust and neglect. The realization settled over her that the warehouse was more than a starting point for her own story. It was a bridge to a past that begged to be remembered. Despite the chill creeping through the broken windows, Lily felt a warmth growing inside her, a connection to these forgotten lives, and a burgeoning sense of purpose. The parallels between their struggles and her own were impossible to ignore. Just as they had faced abandonment and uncertainty, she too was navigating a path shadowed by loss and fear. Yet, within their words, she found resilience that mirrored her own. Hours slipped by as Lily sifted through the crates, the outside world fading until only the stories before her remained. She discovered photographs tucked between the papers, faded images of men and women whose faces bore the marks of hard labor and quiet determination. She traced the outlines with gentle fingers, imagining the lives behind those eyes, the hopes they had held on to even as the years eroded their physical presence. Her thoughts drifted back to her own life. The failed relationships, the harsh words spoken in moments of despair, the nights spent crying alone. The warehouse, with its dusty crates and forgotten memories, was a mirror reflecting her pain, but also her potential for renewal. The pregnancy, once a source of fear and isolation, began to feel like a thread weaving her present bright into a future steeped in possibility. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the warehouse floor, Lily gathered the documents carefully, stacking them in neat piles. The weight of the past settled around her like a mantle. But it was not a burden. It was a legacy she intended to honor. The stories she had uncovered were a reminder that even in the darkest corners, life persisted and hope endured. Her phone buzzed softly in her pocket, pulling her back to the present. A message from a friend offered a brief moment of comfort, a reminder that she was not entirely alone. Yet the warehouse called to her still, its silent invitation to delve deeper, to uncover more of the lives entwined with its walls. Lily knew that this was only the beginning, a journey not just into the building's history, but into her own heart. Before leaving, she paused by the largest crate, her hand resting on its rough surface. The initials she had seen the day before were now etched into her mind, a symbol of all that had been lost and all that could be regained. She vowed to return with tools and determination, to peel back the layers of dust and time until the warehouse was no longer a place of abandonment, but a sanctuary for stories and new beginnings. Walking away from the warehouse as twilight settled, Lily felt a quiet strength settle within her. The shock of betrayal and the sting of isolation still lingered, but beneath them was a growing conviction. She would not let her story end in despair. The warehouse, with its forgotten crates and hidden letters, had given her a glimpse of something greater, a chance to rewrite her future, to build a life not defined by loss but by hope. In the days that followed, Lily found herself drawn back to the warehouse with a quiet urgency. The fragments of letters and photographs she had uncovered began to weave together a tapestry of lives, long forgotten. Each piece a window into a world that once thrived behind those crumbling walls. She spent hours carefully sorting through the crates, her fingers tracing the delicate edges of brittle documents, piecing together stories that had been buried beneath dust and time. One afternoon, as the waning sunlight filtered through the broken panes, Lily uncovered a stack of journals bound in worn leather. The covers were cracked and faded, but the pages inside held the inked memories of someone who had lived and breathed within the warehouse's history. Sitting cross-legged on the cold concrete floor, she opened the first journal and began to read, the words pulling her into a narrative that felt both distant and deeply familiar. The journals belonged to a woman named Eleanor, whose handwriting was elegant yet tinged with the struggles of her era. Eleanor wrote of a small community that had gathered in the warehouse during challenging times, a refuge for those cast aside by society, a place where kindness and solidarity had flourished against the odds. She described faces etched with hardship but softened by hope, recounting moments of shared laughter and quiet sacrifice that had kept them together. Lily was captivated not only by the stories, but by the strength that Eleanor's words conveyed. Despite the scarcity and uncertainty of their circumstances, this community had forged bonds that transcended their isolation. Their resilience echoed in Lily's own heart, stirring a connection that bridged the decades between their lives. It was as if Eleanor had reached through time to offer comfort and encouragement, reminding Lily that she was not alone in her struggle. Alongside the journals, Lily found bundles of letters exchanged among the warehouse's inhabitants. They spoke candidly of fears and dreams, of losses endured and futures hoped for. Some letters were addressed to absent family members, others to friends who had become surrogate kin within the warehouse's walls. The correspondence revealed a network of support that had sustained them through hardship, a reminder that even in abandonment, connection could be found. As she read, Lily reflected on her own isolation, the silence of her family, the sting of rejection that had driven her to seek refuge in this forgotten place. She realized that the warehouse was more than a building. It was a testament to humanity's capacity to find hope and belonging in the bleakest of circumstances. The parallels between her life and the lives chronicled in these papers were undeniable, and the discovery gave her a sense of purpose she had not felt in months. Determined to learn more, Lily began to sketch a rough timeline of events, noting names and dates, trying to map the community that had once thrived here. She imagined the warehouse filled with voices and footsteps, warmth and light replacing the silence and shadows that now dominated the space. The act of reconstructing this history became a balm for her soul, a way to reclaim her own narrative amidst the chaos of her present. Yet, the more she uncovered, the more questions arose. Who had Eleanor been beyond these pages? What had become of the people who had called this warehouse home? And why had their stories been left to fade into obscurity? The mystery deepened with each document, compelling Lily to seek answers beyond the confines of the warehouse. One evening, as twilight settled over the town, Lily sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by the collection of letters and journals she had brought home. Her laptop glowed softly beside her, the search engine open and ready. She typed in names gleaned from the journals, hoping to find traces of the past in historical records or local archives. Hours passed as she sifted through census data, old newspaper clippings, and genealogical databases, piecing together fragments of lives that had slipped through time's grasp. Her efforts were met with mixed results. Some names led to faded mentions in town records, others vanished without a trace. But each discovery, no matter how small, felt like a victory. She found a newspaper article about a community event held decades ago at the warehouse, a rare glimpse into a moment of celebration amidst hardship. Another clipping detailed the struggles of local workers during an economic downturn, providing context for the stories Eleanor had written. The process was exhausting, but invigorating. Lily realized that unraveling the warehouse's past was not just about satisfying curiosity. It was about reclaiming dignity for those who had been forgotten, and in doing so, finding a path forward for herself and her unborn child. The history she was uncovering was intertwined with her own journey from abandonment toward hope. Despite the growing connection to the warehouse's past, Lily wrestled with the fear and uncertainty that still shadowed her steps. The betrayal by her family lingered like a wound, and the reality of impending motherhood weighed heavily on her. Yet, the stories she uncovered offered a quiet strength, a reminder that resilience was born from the willingness to face hardship with courage. One afternoon, while examining a particularly fragile letter, Lily heard footsteps approaching. Startled, she looked up to see a man standing hesitantly in the doorway. His eyes were warm but cautious, and his clothes marked him as someone who knew the town well. "Hi," he said softly. "I heard about the warehouse. I'm Marcus. I'm a local historian. I've been researching some of the old buildings around here. Thought I might be able to help." Lily regarded him carefully. After months of isolation, the prospect of help was both welcome and unsettling. But something in Marcus's tone and presence felt genuine. "I found a lot of old documents inside," she replied, "but I don't know where to begin making sense of it all." Marcus smiled, stepping inside the warehouse. "That's where I come in. These places hold stories that need telling, but it takes time and patience. Maybe we can work together." For the first time in weeks, Lily felt a flicker of hope that extended beyond the crumbling walls. The warehouse was no longer a solitary refuge, but a doorway to connection, a place where past and present could meet, and where she might find allies in the journey ahead. As they examined the journals and letters side by side, Lily realized that this partnership could be the key to unlocking not only the history of the warehouse, but also the strength she needed to embrace her own future. The stories of those who had come before her, marked by sacrifice, community, and resilience, were becoming a guiding light, illuminating her path through uncertainty. With Marcus's help, the hidden history of the warehouse began to unfold, revealing a forgotten chapter of the town's past and weaving Lily's own story into a larger narrative of survival and hope. In the midst of dust and shadows, a new beginning whispered, waiting to be claimed. The morning sun filtered softly through the cracked warehouse windows as Lily unlocked the heavy door once again. The scent of aged paper and dust welcomed her like an old friend. But today, the space felt different, less like an empty relic and more like a living archive waiting to be brought back to life. She clutched a worn leather journal close to her chest, anticipation mingling with a touch of nervousness. Today, she was not alone. Marcus had promised to meet her at the warehouse, eager to dive deeper into the history they had begun to unravel. When he arrived, his eyes lit up with excitement, carrying a stack of documents and a worn notebook filled with his own research. His presence was a quiet reassurance, a bridge between her solitary quest and the wider community that might yet embrace the warehouse's story. "Ready to uncover some more secrets?" Marcus asked, his voice low but eager. Lily nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. More than ever. Together, they spread the fragile papers across a makeshift table, an old wooden door propped up on crates, and began to piece together the narratives hidden within. Marcus's knowledge of local history and archival techniques complemented Lily's discoveries perfectly. Where she had found letters and journals, he brought context and connections, tracing names through census records, newspaper archives, and oral histories collected from the town's older residents. As they worked, a pattern emerged. The warehouse had once served as a refuge, a sanctuary for those cast aside by society during hard times. It was a place where immigrants, laborers, and families struggling to survive had found shelter and solidarity. Marcus shared stories he had gathered about the warehouse functioning as a makeshift community center, hosting gatherings, meals, and meetings that fostered a sense of belonging. Lily listened intently, her heart swelling with a mix of awe and empathy. The parallels between the warehouse's past and her own present were striking. Just as those forgotten souls had banded together to face adversity, she too was beginning to build a new community, one that extended beyond her own isolation. "Look at this," Marcus said, pointing to a faded newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Warehouse Community Holds Festive Gathering to Support Local Families." The article described an event where food was shared, music played, and neighbors came together in celebration despite hardship. Lily's fingers traced the yellowed paper, imagining the laughter and warmth that had once filled the cold, echoing space. "I want to bring that back," she whispered, more to herself than to Marcus. "A place where people don't feel forgotten." Marcus nodded, his eyes reflecting the same hope. That's exactly what it was, and what it can be again. Their conversations soon turned practical. If the warehouse was to be revived, it needed care and attention far beyond what Lily could manage alone. But with Marcus's connections and her own determination, a vision began to take shape. A space that would honor the past while serving the present. Word of Lily's purchase and their research had started to spread quietly through the town. Some neighbors approached with curiosity, others with skepticism. A few expressed concern that the warehouse was better left forgotten, a relic too far gone to save. But Lily was undeterred. One afternoon, as they cataloged a new batch of letters, a middle-aged woman approached the warehouse with cautious steps. Her eyes held a mix of recognition and hesitation. "I'm Sarah," she said softly. "I heard you were working on the old warehouse. I used to come here as a child, with my parents. It was a different place then." Lily's heart quickened. "I'd love to hear your stories." Sarah smiled, and as she shared memories of community dinners and children playing in sunlit corners, the warehouse seemed to breathe anew. These stories were more than nostalgia. They were threads connecting past and present, weaving a fabric of belonging that Lily desperately needed. Though support grew, challenges remained. The building's decay was more severe than Lily had anticipated. Rotten beams, broken windows, and a leaky roof threatened to undo their efforts before they had truly begun. The financial burden loomed large, and the specter of doubt crept in during quiet moments. But Marcus was steadfast. "We can apply for grants, reach out to local groups. People want to help. They just need to know how." Lily found renewed strength in his words. The warehouse was no longer just hers. It belonged to the community, and together they could breathe life back into its walls. As weeks passed, a small group of volunteers gathered. Neighbors, historians, and those touched by the warehouse's story. They cleaned, repaired, and painted, transforming the once desolate space into a place of warmth and possibility. The sound of laughter and conversation filled the air, replacing the silence that had settled for too long. Throughout it all, Lily's pregnancy progressed, each movement reminding her of the new life she was nurturing alongside this rebirth. The warehouse had become a sanctuary, not just for forgotten histories, but for her own healing. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily stood at the entrance, watching the flicker of candles inside, where a small group had gathered for a storytelling night. Marcus joined her, his smile reflecting the glow of the room. "This," he said softly, "is just the beginning." Lily nodded, feeling a profound sense of belonging she had not known in months. The warehouse was no longer a symbol of abandonment, but a beacon of hope. A place where stories converged, wounds began to heal, and new chapters were waiting to be written. The days grew shorter and the air crisper as Lily stood inside the warehouse, now filled with the hum of activity and the warmth of new life. The transformation was remarkable. The once desolate space now held the echoes of shared stories, laughter, and the quiet strength of a community beginning to heal. Yet beneath the surface of renewal, Lily grappled with truths that were harder to face, truths that mirrored the hidden sacrifices of those who had come before her. As she organized a corner filled with donated blankets and baby clothes, Lily's thoughts drifted to the journals she and Marcus had uncovered, tales of hardship and resilience etched into every page. The sacrifices made by the warehouse's original inhabitants were vivid reminders that survival often demanded more than endurance. It required courage, acceptance, and sometimes painful farewells. One evening, as the warehouse emptied and the soft glow of lanterns flickered against the walls, Lily found herself alone with a faded leather journal belonging to Eleanor. She traced Eleanor's delicate handwriting, reading about the woman's own struggles, how she had lost family to illness, how she had faced the scorn of a judgmental society, and yet how she had chosen to nurture others despite her own pain. The parallels to Lily's own story struck her deeply. Just as Eleanor had endured loss and isolation, Lily too carried the weight of abandonment, her family's rejection still fresh and raw. But Eleanor's words offered something more than sorrow. They whispered of hope, of the possibility to transform pain into strength. That night, Lily lay awake, her hand resting on the gentle movements of her unborn child. The warehouse was no longer just a physical space. It was becoming a sanctuary of healing, a place where the past and present intertwined. Yet, she knew that the journey ahead would not be without its challenges. In the days that followed, Lily faced the skepticism of some townspeople who questioned the warehouse's revival. Some urged her to sell the property, doubting that the community could be rebuilt or that the space could be made safe and welcoming. The pressure was palpable, threatening to undermine the fragile progress they had made. But Lily's resolve was firm. She remembered the stories of those who had come before, people who had faced far greater hardships with unwavering determination. Their legacy was a beacon, guiding her through doubt and fear. With Marcus's support, she organized a public meeting, inviting neighbors and local leaders to hear about the warehouse's history and the vision for its future. As she spoke, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. She shared not only the stories uncovered in the journals and letters, but also the hope that the warehouse could become a space of refuge and renewal for others like herself. The response was mixed. Some remained skeptical, but others were moved by her passion and the tangible progress already visible in the warehouse's walls. A few offered help, volunteering time and resources to continue the restoration and develop programs for expectant mothers and vulnerable youth. Encouraged by this support, Lily threw herself into the work, balancing the physical demands of renovation with the emotional labor of preparing for motherhood. Each day brought new challenges: a leaking roof to patch, a community meeting to plan, a letter from a neighbor expressing concern. But also moments of unexpected joy, like the smile of a volunteer or the gentle kick of her baby, reminding her of life's persistence. One afternoon, as she sorted through a box of old photographs donated by a local family. Lily came across an image of Eleanor standing in front of the warehouse, surrounded by children and neighbors. The woman's eyes held a quiet strength, a testament to the resilience that had sustained this community through its darkest days. Lily clutched the photograph to her heart, feeling a profound connection across time. Eleanor's sacrifices had paved the way for this new beginning. And now it was Lily's turn to carry that legacy forward, not just for herself, but for the child she was about to bring into the world. With renewed determination, she began to plan a community gathering, a celebration of the warehouse's history, and a symbol of the hope that had blossomed within its walls. She envisioned a space where stories could be shared, bonds formed, and healing nurtured. It was an opportunity to honor the past while embracing the future. As the event approached, volunteers worked tirelessly to prepare the warehouse, transforming it into a welcoming haven adorned with lights, flowers, and hand-painted signs. The air buzzed with anticipation, and for the first time in a long while, Lily felt the weight of abandonment lifting, replaced by a profound sense of belonging. On the night of the gathering, neighbors, friends, and strangers alike gathered beneath the beams that had witnessed generations of resilience. Stories were exchanged, tears shed, and laughter shared. Lily stood quietly on the sidelines, watching as the community she had imagined came to life. Amid the crowd, she spotted Marcus, his eyes reflecting pride and hope. Together, they had uncovered a history of sacrifice and love, and together they were forging a new chapter. The warehouse was no longer a forgotten relic, but a living testament to the power of healing and connection. As the evening drew to a close, Lily felt the first true stirrings of peace settle within her. The sacrifices of the past were not forgotten. They were woven into the fabric of this moment, a foundation upon which she could build her own future. With her hand resting gently on her belly, she whispered a silent promise to her unborn child, that no matter the challenges ahead, they would face them with courage and love, drawing strength from the stories of those who had come before and the community that now stood beside them. The crisp morning air carried a sharpness that made Lily pull her coat tighter around her growing belly as she approached the warehouse. The once neglected building now hummed with quiet energy, a place slowly shedding its shroud of abandonment and taking on new life. Yet beneath the progress and blossoming hope, a storm was gathering. Whispers from the townspeople, voices both doubtful and demanding, threatening the fragile sanctuary she was building. Since the community gathering, Lily had noticed a shift in the town's attitude. Some neighbors expressed genuine support, volunteering their time and resources, their faces bright with optimism. But others were less kind, skeptics who questioned the warehouse's value, its safety, and even Lily's capacity to carry such a burden alone. The pressure mounted daily, a weight that pressed on her chest as heavily as her pregnancy. One afternoon, as she sorted through donated supplies, a sharply worded letter slipped out of a box. The handwriting was neat but cold, the words laced with skepticism. "This warehouse is a relic of the past, better left to decay. Your efforts are admirable but misguided. Sell it before it becomes a danger to the community." Lily's fingers trembled slightly as she read the note, the sting of doubt piercing her resolve. But beneath the sting was a flicker of understanding. The warehouse's history was complicated, its past marked by hardship and neglect. The idea of restoring it was daunting, and not everyone was ready to embrace change. Yet Lily knew that retreating was not an option. This place had become her anchor, a symbol of hope for herself and the child she carried. Determined to confront the growing opposition, Lily reached out to Marcus. His steady presence and deep knowledge of local history were a balm to her frayed nerves. Together, they organized a town hall meeting, inviting residents to voice their concerns and learn about the warehouse's potential as a community space. The evening of the meeting arrived, and Lily stood before a room filled with familiar and unfamiliar faces, some supportive, others skeptical, a few openly hostile. Her heart pounded, but she steadied her voice as she began to speak, sharing the stories uncovered in the journals and letters, the vision of a space that could offer refuge and renewal to those in need. She spoke of the sacrifices made by those who had once called the warehouse home, their courage in the face of adversity, and the power of community to heal wounds left by abandonment. She shared her own story, her pregnancy, the isolation she had endured, and the hope she found in this place. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Then, questions came, some probing, some confrontational. Concerns about safety, funding, and the practicality of restoring an old building were voiced, and Lily answered each with honesty and determination. She acknowledged the challenges, but emphasized the growing support and the small victories already achieved. Marcus added context, sharing historical details and examples from other towns where forgotten spaces had been revitalized to serve as centers of community strength. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted from confrontation to conversation, the skepticism softening into cautious curiosity. After the meeting, a few neighbors approached Lily, offering to help with repairs or organize fundraising efforts. Their voices carried a new tone, hope mixed with a willingness to be part of something larger than themselves. Lily felt a surge of gratitude, the collective spirit rekindling her own. Yet, the practical challenges remained daunting. The warehouse's structure was fragile. Water damage had worsened, and the roof leaked in several places. The financial burden was heavy, and with her pregnancy advancing, Lily faced the reality that she could not do this alone. One evening, as she sat at her kitchen table poring over budgets and grant applications, a voicemail played softly from a local foundation. The voice on the other end expressed interest in supporting community projects that fostered inclusion and resilience. It was a small but significant step, a tangible sign that the vision for the warehouse was gaining traction beyond the town's borders. Emboldened, Lily began to draft proposals, reaching out to nonprofits and local businesses. She shared the warehouse's story and its potential to serve as a haven for expectant mothers and abandoned youth. Those who, like her, had felt the sting of rejection and the need for a safe place to belong. Throughout this whirlwind of activity, Marcus remained a steady presence. Together, they coordinated volunteers, managed repairs, and planned programs that would breathe life into the warehouse. The building was slowly transforming, not just physically, but in spirit. On a chilly afternoon, Lily stood inside the warehouse, watching as a group of neighbors cleared debris and patched walls. The scent of fresh paint mingled with the lingering dust, a testament to the labor and hope filling the space. Her hand rested protectively on her belly, the life within her a constant reminder of why she had chosen this path. Though the road ahead was uncertain, Lily felt a resilience growing inside her, a strength born of connection, purpose, and the stories of those who had come before. The warehouse was no longer just a building. It was a beacon of possibility, a sanctuary in the making. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the concrete floor, Lily allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The challenges were real, the doubts persistent. But so too was the hope that had sparked within this forgotten place. And with each passing day, She moved closer to turning that hope into reality, not just for herself, but for a community ready to embrace renewal. The warehouse buzzed with quiet activity as morning light filtered through the patched windows. Lily, wearing a well-worn work jacket over her maternity dress, moved steadily among the volunteers, her hands busy wiping down a wooden beam that had once seemed too fragile to touch. The transformation was tangible. Walls were repaired, floors swept clean, and corners once cloaked in shadow now glowed with a soft warmth. The scent of fresh paint mingled with sawdust, filling the air with the promise of renewal. Lily paused for a moment, her hand resting gently on her belly, feeling the subtle flutter of movement inside. The life growing within her was a constant reminder of the stakes, of the future she was building not just for herself, but for her child. The warehouse was no longer a forgotten relic. It was becoming a sanctuary, a place where stories of pain could be met with healing and hope. Months of tireless work had brought them to this point. Volunteers from the town and beyond had answered the call, their hands and hearts shaping the space into something welcoming and alive. Local carpenters fixed broken beams, artists painted murals inspired by the community's history, and neighbors donated furniture and supplies. The warehouse was shedding its past as a place of abandonment and stepping into a new role, one of refuge and resilience. Lily's days were a delicate balance between physical labor and preparing for motherhood. She met with local social workers and healthcare providers to develop programs for expectant mothers, drawing from her own experience and the stories unearthed in the warehouse's archives. Plans were underway for prenatal classes, support groups, and counseling services, all housed within the spaces they were restoring. Despite the progress, challenges persisted. The building's age meant repairs were ongoing, and funding remained a constant concern. Yet each obstacle was met with determination, the community's growing commitment a testament to the power of shared purpose. One afternoon, as Lily arranged a shelf stocked with children's books and toys, Marcus appeared with a stack of framed photographs. "Look what I found at the Historical Society," he said, setting them down carefully. The images depicted scenes from decades past, families gathered in the warehouse courtyard, children playing, neighbors sharing meals. Faces smiled out from the black and white prints, their eyes bright with hope even amid hardship. Lily studied the photographs, feeling the weight of continuity. The warehouse had been a place of belonging then, and now it was being reborn to serve the same purpose. She realized that her own journey, from abandonment to empowerment, was part of a larger story, one woven through generations. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the warehouse floor, Lily joined the volunteers in planting a small garden outside. Seeds were carefully nestled into the soil, a symbol of growth and nurturing. The act was more than practical. It was ceremonial, a way to honor the lives that had come before and those yet to blossom. The garden would provide fresh herbs and vegetables for the community kitchen, a space where neighbors could gather, share meals, and build connections. It was a living testament to the warehouse's transformation, rooted in the earth and reaching toward the future. That evening, Lily sat quietly in the newly furnished lounge area, the soft hum of restoration work fading into the background. She reflected on the journey, the loneliness that had driven her to this place, the discoveries that had connected her to a forgotten past, and the community that was now rallying around a shared vision. The warehouse had become a mirror for her own growth, a space where vulnerability was met with strength and hope. Each repaired beam and painted wall told a story of resilience, each volunteer's effort a thread in the fabric of renewal. As she rested her hand on her belly, Lily felt a surge of gratitude and determination. The path ahead was still uncertain, but the foundation was solid, built on stories of survival, acts of kindness, and the unwavering belief that even the most neglected places could be reborn. Tomorrow, she would continue to prepare. For the birth of her child, for the opening of the warehouse's programs, and for the ongoing work of healing and community building. But tonight, surrounded by the quiet promise of a space coming to life, she allowed herself to simply be, to breathe, to hope, and to dream of the future taking root within these walls. The early morning sun slipped softly through the warehouse windows, casting a warm glow over the freshly painted walls and neatly arranged furniture. The space was alive with quiet anticipation, the hum of preparation filling the air. Lily sat in a comfortable chair near the center of the room, her hands resting gently on her swollen belly, feeling the steady movements of the child she had nurtured both in body and spirit. The journey to this moment had been long and harrowing, marked by nights spent wrestling with doubt and days filled with tireless work to bring the warehouse back from its forgotten state. But now, as she looked around the space transformed by community effort and hope, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This warehouse was no longer a relic of abandonment. It was a beacon of new beginnings. Labor had begun quietly in the early hours, a gentle rhythm that echoed the quiet strength Lily had cultivated over the months. Supported by a small team of midwives and volunteers, many of whom had been part of the warehouse's restoration, she faced the birth with a mixture of anticipation and calm resolve. The story of the warehouse and the life within her seemed to intertwine, each strengthening the other. As contractions deepened, the space took on a sacred quality. Soft blankets were spread, candles flickered, and the voices of friends and neighbors offered steady encouragement. Eleanor's journals lay nearby, their pages a silent testament to the generations of women who had faced the trials of childbirth with courage and grace. Lily drew strength from their words, feeling connected to a lineage of resilience. Hours passed, marked by rhythmic breathing and whispered prayers. The community that had gathered around Lily was a living embodiment of the warehouse's rebirth, a circle of support that transcended isolation and fear. Each person present carried a story of survival, hope, and the power of kindness. Then, with a final surge of effort, the cry of new life filled the air. A clear, strong sound that seemed to awaken the very walls. The baby was born healthy, a boy with wide, curious eyes that mirrored the hope of the warehouse itself. Tears streamed down Lily's face as she held him close, feeling the profound bond that had already begun to form. She named him Thomas, after the original owner of the warehouse, a tribute to the past that had shaped this moment and a promise to the future they would build together. The room was filled with quiet celebration, the community embracing the arrival of new life as a symbol of renewal and continuity. In the days that followed, the warehouse transformed once again, this time into a home filled with the soft sounds of a newborn's coos and the gentle rhythms of motherhood. Lily found joy in the small moments, the warmth of Thomas's tiny hand in hers, the way his eyes tracked the light, the quiet strength she discovered within herself. The birth was more than a personal milestone. It was a communal event that bound the warehouse's history to its future. Neighbors who had once been strangers now shared in the miracle, their shared efforts and hopes manifesting in the life they had helped bring into the world. As Thomas grew stronger, Lily began to envision the warehouse's next chapter. A place where children could play, mothers could find support, and stories of hardship could be met with understanding and care. The journey from abandonment to empowerment was ongoing. But the birth of her son marked a profound turning point. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the open doors, Lily sat with Thomas in her lap, watching volunteers prepare for a community gathering. The air was filled with the scent of fresh flowers and the sound of laughter, a testament to the healing power of connection. She thought of Eleanor and the countless others whose lives had woven into the fabric of this place, their sacrifices and hopes carried forward in the child she held. The warehouse had become a sanctuary not only for her family, but for all who sought refuge and renewal. With Thomas nestled against her, Lily felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. The warehouse's walls, once silent and empty, now resonated with life and promise. Together, they were beginning a new chapter, one built on resilience, love, and the unyielding belief that even in the most unlikely places, hope could take root and flourish. The warehouse had become a vibrant hub of activity, a place where the echoes of the past intertwined seamlessly with the aspirations of the present. Lily watched from the corner of the bustling room as children's laughter filled the air, mingling with the soft murmur of conversations and the clatter of cups from the small kitchen where volunteers prepared snacks. The transformation was nothing short of remarkable. The space that once stood abandoned and forgotten now pulsed with life and purpose. It was hard to believe that only months ago, this building had been a crumbling relic, its walls heavy with silence and dust. Now, it was a beacon of hope, a sanctuary for those facing crisis pregnancies, young mothers seeking support, and abandoned youths yearning for a place to belong. The community center had blossomed from Lily's vision, and the collective effort of neighbors, volunteers, and local organizations united by a shared commitment to nurture and healing. Lily moved through the room with practiced ease, greeting families and offering gentle smiles. Her son Thomas, now a curious toddler, toddled nearby under the watchful eyes of a volunteer, his laughter a constant reminder of the life and future they were building together. The warehouse was his home as much as it was hers, a living testament to resilience and renewal. The programs offered within these walls were diverse and thoughtful. Prenatal classes equipped expectant mothers with knowledge and confidence, while parenting workshops fostered community bonds and practical skills. Counseling services provided safe spaces for healing, and after-school programs gave children and teens a place to grow and thrive. Each initiative was born from the stories Lily had uncovered in the warehouse's archives, the sacrifices and hopes of those who had once sought refuge here. One afternoon, Lily sat in the small library corner, surrounded by shelves filled with donated books and resources. She flipped through a notebook filled with notes and plans for upcoming workshops, her mind brimming with ideas. The legacy of Eleanor and the warehouse's original community inspired her daily, reminding her that healing was possible even after profound loss. As she looked around, she noticed a young woman sitting nearby, her eyes bright yet tinged with uncertainty. Approaching gently, Lily offered a warm smile. "Would you like to talk?" she asked softly. The woman nodded, and they soon found themselves sharing stories, a tapestry woven from pain, courage, and hope. This was the essence of the warehouse's mission: to provide not just shelter, but understanding, to transform isolation into connection. Outside, the garden flourished, tended by volunteers and community members. Its vibrant colors and fragrant blooms were a living symbol of growth and nurture, reflecting the deeper transformations taking place within the warehouse walls. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the neighborhood, Lily gathered with a team of volunteers and staff to reflect on their journey. The progress was evident, yet the work was ongoing. Funding remained a challenge, and the needs of the community continued to evolve. But the spirit of resilience that had brought them this far was unshakable. Plans were underway to expand outreach efforts, collaborate with local schools, and create mentorship programs for youths who had felt the sting of abandonment. The warehouse was becoming more than a center. It was a lifeline, a place where futures were being rewritten. In a quiet moment, Lily held Thomas close, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her chest. She thought of the paths that had led them here, from the loneliness of her own pregnancy to the discovery of the warehouse's hidden histories, from the skepticism of neighbors to the blossoming of a supportive community. Her journey mirrored that of the warehouse itself, both marked by challenges and shaped by the power of hope and human connection. Together, they stood as testaments to the possibility of healing and renewal. As evening settled, Lily stepped outside, the cool air wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. She gazed at the warehouse's sturdy frame, silhouetted against the twilight sky, a beacon of light in the growing darkness. Inside, voices rose in song. Stories were shared, and laughter echoed through the halls. The community had found a home here, a place where every person mattered and every story was honored. Lily whispered a silent promise to herself and to Thomas, that they would continue to nurture this legacy, to build on the foundation laid by those who had come before, and to ensure that the warehouse remained a sanctuary of hope for generations to come. The warehouse was no longer just a building. It was a living, breathing testament to resilience, kindness, and the enduring power of community. And within its walls, Lily found not only her own healing but the strength to help others find theirs. Years had passed since Lily first crossed the threshold of the abandoned warehouse, her heart burdened with loss and uncertainty. Now, standing at the entrance of what was no longer just a building but a thriving community center known affectionately as Hope House, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The weathered walls that once whispered tales of neglect now echoed with laughter, learning, and life. Thomas, now a bright-eyed boy of 5, darted through the bustling space, his joyful shouts mingling with the chatter of children and adults alike. He was no longer the fragile infant cradled in Lily's arms, but a symbol of the hope and renewal that had blossomed within these walls. Watching him play among friends, Lily's heart swelled with gratitude and pride. Hope House had grown beyond her wildest dreams. What began as a personal refuge had evolved into a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting women facing crisis pregnancies, abandoned youths, and families seeking connection. The programs were diverse: prenatal care, parenting workshops, counseling services, educational support, and community events, all designed to nurture resilience and foster belonging. Lily herself had returned to midwifery, her earlier dreams rekindled and transformed by her journey. With Eleanor's journals as a guiding light, she embraced her role not only as a caregiver, but as a mentor and advocate, helping others navigate the challenges she once faced alone. Marcus remained a steadfast partner, his historical research enriching the center's programs and deepening the community's connection to its shared past. One crisp morning, as Lily prepared to welcome a group of expectant mothers for a workshop, a letter arrived, a publishing offer from a local press intrigued by the story of Hope House. They wished to share the journey of the warehouse's transformation and the lives it touched, hoping to inspire others to create supportive environments for those in need. Lily pondered the opportunity with a mixture of humility and excitement. The book would be more than a memoir. It would be a beacon, a testament to the power of compassion and the possibility of healing. She envisioned stories from the archives woven with her own narrative, the voices of women and families who had found sanctuary within Hope House's embrace. As she shared the news with Marcus and the staff, the room filled with quiet celebration. The journey that began with a dilapidated warehouse and a pregnant woman's hope was now a beacon reaching far beyond their small town, touching hearts and changing lives. That evening, Lily sat in the garden with Thomas nestled beside her, the sun dipping below the horizon and casting a golden glow over the flourishing beds of herbs and flowers. She reflected on the countless moments of doubt and despair, the kindnesses that had lifted her, and the community that had grown from her determination. Hope House was not just a building or a program. It was a family forged by choice, love, and resilience. It stood as a testament to the enduring human spirit, a place where stories of abandonment gave way to narratives of acceptance and growth. As Thomas reached for her hand, his small fingers entwined with hers, Lily whispered a promise to continue nurturing this legacy, to embrace the challenges ahead with courage, and to ensure that Hope House remained a sanctuary for all who sought refuge. Their story, like the warehouses, was one of transformation, a reminder that even the hardest beginnings could lead to new life, new purpose, and a future filled with hope.